And now we want to take a look at a little video from one of our summer campers. Dan, would you please throw it to Daphna?
Hi, my name is Daphna and I live in Halifax, Nova Scotia in Canada. My favorite operetta is The Merry Widow. Here is why I love it so much. First, it's funny. Especially during the coronavirus pandemic, watching something comedic has definitely helped take my mind off things. In The Merry Widow, the dialogue is so clever, witty, and crisp it never gets old. I have seen it so many times and I still laugh so much. Second, the music is amazing. The score to The Merry Widow is catchy and the songs are so much fun to sing along to. In conclusion, The Merry Widow is a great piece of art and I would definitely recommend.
Thank you, Daphna, for that. And speaking of the Merry Widow, would you please join me in sending some love through the Zoom portal to one of our own, Dr. Emily Sáenz? Dr. Emily Sáenz, reveal yourself. Yes.
Hello, friends.
Hi. Take it
I'm
away.
so glad to be with you guys. So glad to be wearing makeup on the bottom half of my face instead of just the top half above the mask. It's so fun to be here and to talk with you about a show that I just love. I first want to acknowledge that I live in what is now Fort Worth, but it is land originally occupied by the Wichita and Comanche people. We are going to start today by just diving in on this one. I'll tell you a little bit about my campus just so you know what I'm working with. I teach at a 6th through 12th grade campus. So I see 12-year-olds and I see 18-year-olds, sometimes back to back. I'm the choir director there. So I like to think that I teach singing and also empathy and creativity and kindness, which I know is what you are all doing in your own classrooms. Currently, we're about 50-50 face-to-face versus virtual. We are divided into cohorts, which means sometimes I have 6 people in person and 40 people online, and sometimes it's switched the other way around. I see about 250 students a day in total. So these things that I've come up with for you are things that are working in our classroom and helping us to continue feeling like a family and like a team, even though we're separate. There are so many ways to jump into an opera when you're starting to teach to your students, and it really depends on the show. If we're teaching Madame Butterfly, I start with geisha culture. If we are teaching Porgy and Bess, I start with the book Porgy. If we are starting with an opera like Lucia, which we'll be talking about later this afternoon, I'll start with a particular scene. One of the things that's beautiful about Merry Widow is that it's so charming, so frothy and delightful that you can throw kids into the swimming pool of the opera and they will swim. This is not true for other operas, so you should not use this approach for everything. But I have found that a very brief introduction to the piece is enough for them to buy in and love it. And that's not always the case. Creating is a team sport. And so we want to help the kids feel connected to each other. So our activities today are going to kind of highlight that. We're also going to talk about the theater of inaugurations and feeling comfortable in your bodies, which we just did a little bit of, so it ties in really nicely. I'm going to share my screen with you here so that you can see the PowerPoint I've created. After today's sessions together, this PowerPoint will be available to you in the Google Classroom. Love is a battlefield, my friends, and many of these children do not know that song, so you'll need to play it for them. During Hannah's very first dialogue with Danilo in Act 1, she kind of finishes up their flirting by saying, "I'll see you on the battlefield," meaning the dance floor. And it is a battlefield, especially when you're in middle school. Anybody remember how awkward that is? So we're going to start by talking about dance cards, which they make reference to a whole lot of times in this opera. We also have just seen reference to these in a particular Netflix show that everyone is watching. So if you are a Bridgerton person, you will have seen some dance cards in there. Dance cards were popular during the 19th and early 20th centuries. They're just these little small booklets that you would get when you came to a fancy ball. If you were a lady, you would wear them on your wrist. Many of them have a band to keep them onto your hand. And the gentlemen would come around with their pencils and write their names onto your dance card where they wanted to, for the dances they wanted to dance with you. At the end of the night, you got to keep the dance card. It was kind of a souvenir of your evening. Here are just a couple of dance cards that I've found. I love the look of both of these, especially the handwriting. And if you'll look at the pink one on the left, you can see number 19. Somebody got scratched out, which I think is really great. I love to imagine the scenario when that happened. The one on the right up at the top corner, you can see it's got the band there for the wrist so that she can still do the waltz and the polka, but not drop her dance card. Some of them look like fans. Isn't this one lovely? And you can see towards the center of the dance card, we've got all the different types of dances that we're going to be doing. You can see waltz, polka, waltz, 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 lancers, etc. So they tell you what kind of dance is going to be happening, and then they sign on there. It is inappropriate for you to dance with one gentleman for more than 4 dances. So evidently 4 dances, you're in the clear, but after 4, he better be marrying you. And I want to show you something that I discovered in the Library of Congress. I just Googled dance cards and dove in there and came across this dance card from the Lincoln inauguration. So this is from the inaugural ball in 1861. It's preserved so, so beautifully. And this might be something that we could look at again in future operas. We've got some things coming up in the next couple of years that will tie in beautifully here. This is the inside of this dance card. I just think it is so beautiful. The edges are embossed. You can see that there. So under the program section here, we've got the style of the dance. Then we've got the name of the dance. And then in the right-hand column are the composers. Those of you that are musicians, if you just take a look down that right-hand side, you'll see that outside of the name Strauss, there are not many people there that you've heard of, certainly not many that I had heard of. And that was really interesting to me. They must have been a big deal to be performing at the Lincoln inaugural ball, to have their piece performed there, and yet they're not composers that we necessarily have heard of. I love to look at the names of the compositions there. You can see that some of them are named after themes. For example, there's a Martha on there, which I love. There's a union, a presidential, so names that are really appropriate for the inaugural ball. And then, because I am a dork, I went into the YouTubes and I found as many of these as I could and linked them here for you. So here are YouTube links to all the ones that I could find. This is a living document. And so if you come across some of these other ones that I was not able to find, I would love for you to share them just so that we could all experience that. In my classroom, we watched the inauguration every single class period. We discussed how inaugural ceremonies are like a wedding and theater and a political act all at one time. And then following the watching of the inauguration, we had a little bit of Lincoln's inaugural ball in the classroom and played some of these pieces that were played for him. And I think it was really enjoyable for everybody. So I invite you to please, make use of that playlist in any way you see fit. Other things that would have been handed to teenagers as they're preparing to go to these balls are these very detailed books of etiquette, these dance manuals. If you didn't read these before you went, you could make a fool of yourself and ruin your own marriage prospects as well as those of your siblings. So there was a lot of pressure there for people to really make sure they knew what they were doing. I love these drawings, especially this guy bowing here, I think is pretty cute. Okay, so now let's see how we're going to tie this into the opera. So as I mentioned at the beginning here, I just throw the kids into the swimming pool of this. It's so enjoyable, so pleasant, and so funny, and they just take right to it. After we have seen the opera, then we dive into our digital dance card activity. And this is digital so that our friends at home can participate on the same document that our friends in person are participating on, and it makes them feel really, really connected, which is really what we need in this time. So the first thing the kids are going to do is select 5 songs from the genres they love. I've listed those off to the side, and my kids voted on those genres. So you could, of course, change that to be more appropriate for your kids. I would like to say that they believe that oldies are anything 2000 and before. So let that sink into your brain, that songs from the 90s are now oldies. that wrecked me just a little. After they select their songs, they can link to them, clean recordings only, which means they might have to go with the Kids Bop version, just so you know. And then they can select dream dates that they want to dance with. These dates can be anybody from any time period. Mozart, Lady Gaga, and Prince are all in my top 5. And it's really cool to see what the kids come up with. And then they're going to fill out the Google form with the names of the songs that they've chosen and the links and their dates. And let's take a look here. So here is the Google form that I made for them to party like it's $18.99. They filled that in there. And here are the results that I got from my little chickens. So they went in and told me what they wanted to hear. I thought it was, my favorite part was seeing who they wanted to dance with, knowing that a lot of them picked their siblings, which I just thought was really cute and really precious. I would not have picked my siblings, so I thought that was really nice. So that was really great to see. And then we broke into the theater closet and had a dance party of our own. So we turned off all the lights, put on black lights. I got glow tape on the floor so they could stay distanced and keep those masks on. And then we just partied hardy. We kept our friends at home on the screen so we could see them kind of bebopping as well. The fog machine, you know, took it up a notch, as fog machines do. And it just felt like a great time to be together and have a good laugh. It has nothing to do with singing, and I love that. As a choir teacher, I love to change it up. Next, to take it a little bit further, here are some of my little monkeys here off to the side. You can see they have just a scotch of personality. We are going to use the dance card as a template for performances of our own. So dance cards are very organized. The person who plans the inaugural ball or who plans the big fancy party is going to be thinking, do we want to put 2 waltzes back to back? Should we break it up with a polka? How much time do we need for a break for the band, et cetera, et cetera? How many songs before we need a slow song? And so this is a great way to teach kids about intentionality, how to be organized. And it works really, really well to plan the logistics of a concert or a performance, but you could really apply that to anything. So we took the dance card. I went to this great website, livingworksheets.com, which I've linked here as well, and created kind of a dance card of sorts that's based on the repertoire on our upcoming concert. So the kids are going to sit down. We're going to make sure that we are familiar with all the rep that's going to be performed on the upcoming event. And then we're going to discuss together, what order do we think these pieces need to go in? Why or why not? How many things that are a similar texture or a similar form do we want back to back before we want to break it up? How do we consider languages or the plot lines of the poetry of the music that we're singing? There's so many things to consider, and welcoming them into that conversation is really enlightening. They have such good ideas. And it also helps to teach them about how far and ahead you need to think, which is a life skill and not just a fine arts skill. So we used it to prepare for our upcoming Motown concert that's happening in the spring, which includes dancing on it. So this dance party was kind of a good way for us to just be safe in our room together and be goofy and have dance moves. And now they're prepped to learn choreography for May because they've already danced in front of each other. And now then the weirdness is gone. And it happens very organically that way without me having to say, everyone's going to be okay, just grapevine. So I really enjoy doing this little activity with them. Anything that we can do to teach them life skills that are more than just fine arts or what we want to do. So there's that worksheet there. The last thing is we can tie into the etiquette that dancers would prepare before they would go to a ball. Hannah Glowry was certainly prepared with her etiquette before she went to the ball. And we can tie that into performance etiquette, how to hold your music, where to stand on the stage, where to put your instrument, what to do with your prop when you exit the stage. I mean, this can tie into just about anything there. So that's a really nice kind of twin exercise. These are just some tools that I use. The Met educational materials are so fabulous for everything, but I really, really love the ones they wrote for this. And then I listed for you some other websites. I hope you guys will enjoy that activity. My kids certainly loved it, and it was so nice to have a dance party. Anytime you can have one of those, why not?
Wonderful. Dr. Emily Sáenz, it is always a joy to learn from you, and we are going to see more of you later. But thank you so much for that. That was amazing.